A Gucci bag, $1,700. My trip to go to Bali total, $1,700. My experience altogether,
priceless.
Okay, so tip number 1, research. Do your research. I cannot stress this enough. Some people just buy tickets, you know, say, oh, I'll figure it out when I get there. No. Do your research when it comes to accommodations, where you want to stay, why you want to stay there, why you want to travel to the place you want to travel to. Do your research. I cannot stress this enough. And what I mean by that is don't only look at the safety aspect and say, oh, what political things do they have going on? What like unrest is it in the country? No, I mean research everything. When I first decided that I wanted to go to Bali, I was like, why do I want to go there? I saw tourist pictures. I'm gonna admit that I researched the tourist stuff, of course, but I also researched cultural things that I could do while I was there that were in proximity to the touristy things that I wanted to do. Then I also looked on all the YouTuber sites that I could find that mentioned Bali or a guide to Bali or tips to traveling in Bali, solo trips. I looked at probably every one of the, I'm not even kidding, every one of the solo trips guide or solo trip vlog videos that I can find when it came to women going to Bali, men going to Bali, couples going to Bali, stuff like that. Like I went through everything. Not even kidding you, I went through everything. And the reason I did that is because a lot of times influencers who go to Bali, which has been a common thing, I don't know why Bali in particular this year, but when they go to these places, they advertise for these companies abroad, but it's the same place or the same activities or the same accommodations that don't have a ton of followers, that can't reach influencers that have the exact same thing when it comes to activities, excursions, floating breakfasts in the pools, morning drinks, smoothies, coconuts. They have all that, but the reason that they're not getting the attention they want is because influencers, they can't have the platform to reach influencers to have them advertise for them, if that makes sense. So I figured that out, and once I figured that out, I said, I'm not going to go to so-and-so villa just so I can pretend that I'm an Instagram influencer for a day. I'm going to go to this other villa because I'm doing it for me, and I can get the same pictures, the same quality service, if not better, for the same price, if not cheaper, you know, in case it's sold out. I also looked at Airbnb when it comes not only to places I was staying, but I also looked at activities that I was doing. So I thought that was very, 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 very important. Reasons being, a lot of times they try to trick you and trip you up, and I'll talk about this later in the video, with touristy packages, all-inclusive things, because they know you're a tourist and they know that Americans in particular are usually stereotyped. Is that a word? Stereotyped as lazy individuals. So when they have everything together right in front of you, of course you're going to be more apt to just buy a package in front of them and just pay whatever they are asking for. Usually it's anywhere from $50 USD to $100 and something USD, which is ridiculous considering how much I paid for each individual activity and how I organize my own transportation to get to that activity. So do not fall for the tourist traps. I promise you, do not fall for the tourist traps. Don't do it. I know it's tempting, I know it's all right there, but do not do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not good. Okay, I think that's good for that. Oh, no. I also want to mention dates. This is all under research. Research when you want to travel to the particular place that you want to travel to, because it all comes down to money at the end of the day. If you go in the summertime, so like end of May, June, July, that's usually when they travel. If you know that you want to travel during those days, find out when the least amount of tourists go to that place so that you can get the best price and won't have expensive flight or expensive housing, because everything is going to be much more expensive because there's more people. It's like supply and demand. If you choose to go during these busier times of the year, then make sure that you know what you're putting yourself into, because many times it's going to be triple what they're usually asking for if it wasn't a touristy time of the year. Okay, so I'm going to go on to my second tip. Tip number 2. Budget.
Budget.
We can talk about it all day. Ways to save money, how to do this, how to do that, how to save. Everybody has all these really unique and foreign ways of saving money, but I'm talking about budgeting in particular when it comes to quality over quantity in particular. And I think this is really important. But this is what's going to make or break your budget. So, on the flight, you want to choose what are you willing to sacrifice when it comes to flight. And what I mean by this is you can choose from a wide range of airlines such as like Priceline, Expedia, other ones. I mean, I'm not sponsoring anybody, so I'm just going to say those two. And what you're going to look at is, do you want a really nice, hospitable airline with very nice amenities and things of that nature that's at a reasonable price or even a high price? Or do you want to just get to Bali quick as you can, take a lot of transfers, not stay with one airline? Like, do you have that discipline? What I did in particular is lucked up and I got a very nice airline with very nice accommodations as well as a nice price. And I also went straight to my destination, but I only had layovers. All I had was a layover, but I never had a transfer. It was just there and back with Qatar Airlines, period. So you want to know what you want to look for. I say this because some people want the entire experience, and it is a lot to transfer flights or transfer to other airlines when you're going to another country. Sometimes things do get delayed. Airlines do not communicate with each other. They have no bearing or accountability with each other, so you want to make sure that you choose wisely. Also, when it comes to housing types, as I mentioned before, a lot of these very touristy, appealing villa places, it's really hard to get caught up in just saying, oh, I want to be there, 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 paying whatever they ask you for and never looking at it again and just enjoying it, where you could get a more enriching experience for a lesser price, or even a more inclusive experience at a lesser price. So one of those things would be hostels. You can choose a hostel. This is by far probably one of the most cheapest options. A hostel, if you guys don't know, is basically a communal housing situation where you stay with other people who are usually foreigners of another country coming to stay with you in the same room. Usually it's a bunk bed type setup. And it's also a shared living room, shared kitchen. Sometimes the hostel owner or the person who owns the house or place that you're staying will cook you breakfast. You're all responsible for cleaning up the place. And it usually either has bunk beds or cots. So yeah, that's basically my version of a hostel. Those are the ones I've seen, and maybe other experiences, but usually that's what it looks like. So then you can see also if you want to stay with a host family. I didn't know any host families in Bali, and I wouldn't be comfortable with doing a host family off bat, only because you are a tourist in this area and you're not very familiar with the climate and the social environment of the area, and you're the only point of contact if you are solo traveling like I am. Host families basically are your second family away from home. They let you stay with them. They cook for you usually. You're in the house with them. It's like Airbnb, but like family edition, if that makes sense. It's really nice. It's usually really great experiences. And yeah, that's just an option too. That's probably the second cheapest option that I would know of. And then it's also hotels. We're getting into the expensive option, or the more expensive option when it pertains to Bali in particular. Hotels range around from, I want to say, $100 to $200 a night. If you're staying in a resort hotel, like a lot of people tend to do, it's usually like $300, $400, $600 a night. Yeah, it gets really up there, because they know you're a tourist and they have a more individualized experience, and it's more of a retreat resort experience as well, because a lot of hotels just don't pay for the room. You're paying for everything, the hospitality, free breakfast, pool, all exclusive beach, VIP this, things of that nature. And then on top of that, what I stayed in is a villa. I put villa at the same level as a hotel because villas are very, very expensive if you're looking for a very expensive one, or they can be very, very cheap or very, very moderately priced. So if you're doing a basic villa, as I mentioned before, it's a pool, a wide open range, glass enclosed mini house, like a guest house, like a mother-in-law suite, but like just the first level, and that's it. If you're doing a more upscale villa, like what I stayed in, it's usually going to be the pool that you have that's just your pool, the little mini room and bathroom inside of it, and then like a common area. Yeah, that's it. And then you have like hospitality when it pertains to people coming to check on you, cleaning up your room, things of that nature. We also have free breakfast most of the time, and it might be other like little knickknacks that are included with that. If you're doing a very upscale villa, it's going to be a house basically. It's going to be like a mother-in-law suite with a first and second floor, that all-inclusive pool, free breakfast, really nice hospitality amenities, things of that nature, and it's just going to be a different variation of things, but it's going to be much, much, much more expensive. And we're talking about getting up into that hotel range when it comes to like $500, $600. Like, it's crazy because it's considered like a house, and it's assumed that you're sharing that house with other people, such as your friends, other travelers, visitors, whatever you're doing. So when it comes to the actual location of where you are choosing to stay, you're going to stay, if you stay closer to the city, it's going to be more expensive. It's kind of just like any other place in the world. You stay closer to the city, it's going to be more expensive. You stay further away from the city, like in the suburbs, countryside, it's going to be less expensive because you're away from that touristy environment. You get closer to the touristy stuff, of course they're going to charge you the touristy price. So beware of that. And then just a problem that I encountered when just budgeting for this, when you travel, you want to be mindful where you put your luggage. And I kind of randomly put this in here because it gets included into the price when you're choosing options of how you want to travel from the airport to and from, how you want to travel to your villa back and forth, and things of that nature. One problem that I encountered was where to put my luggage. I'm a very independent person, i.e. why I chose a solo trip. And I never ever paid for a car like driver, like hired a driver or paid to be transported in a car if it was not without my luggage, because you can't put luggage on the back of a motorbike, which was the common use of transport there. And I just had to hire a driver. But even then I did Grab and Gojek, which are the equivalent to Uber in Bali, and they were very helpful for like transporting me there and to and from, the places I wanted to go. And that gets into my next point, which is still under budget, about choosing how you want to transport while you're in the city. You can do local transport, you can do motorbike, or buying your own car / like renting your own car. You can do hiring a driver, and you can do bicycle. Yeah, you can do bicycle too. So what I chose to do in Bali, like I said, is a motorbike. I did not do this my first day. Because I had no experience with a motorbike. Nada whatsoever. But I chose to still try to learn how to ride a motorbike, because it gets very, 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 very expensive when it comes to traveling all the different places you want to go in the country, and you have to pay whatever price they tell you that you have to pay. I've heard horror stories of people being left on the side of the road because they agree with one price with their driver, then they get halfway there, they tell them, oh, it's this price, they say no, and they tell them to get out. You don't want that to happen to you. I'm not saying that has happened to a lot of people or people that I know, but I'm just saying that has happened. And if you don't have like a price like on Grab or Gojek that's like set in stone and it's documented, I would not recommend just picking up any driver or doing a taxi. That's one of the biggest tourist traps that you can do. So I did a motorbike, and I'll show you the price difference. A motorbike in Bali, to rent it for one day is $2 per day, right? To buy one USD, United States dollar. To buy 2 liters of gas is the equivalent to 62 cents USD. So from me going to the airport to my villa, it was, I want to say, around 250,000 rupiah, and that's $12 and some change, I want to say, roughly, just trying to get my transport from the hotel to the airport and back. And so just the comparison shows you that you can spend a lot less and go a lot more places if you just choose to ride your own motorbike or rent or do whatever you do independently. So that's how you can save money. Also, how to save, I don't really have tips on that in particular because I didn't really save for this trip. I know everybody's gonna be like,
what? Excuse me? What the, you know?
But I didn't save for this trip. I did an impulsive buy, I have to admit. Hey you, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Thanks in advance. Bye. It was back in around Christmas of December 2019. I got $200 from my aunt, got $200 from my mom, $200 from my uncle, put it all together, and then I got my paycheck of $400. And I said, oh wow, my account's looking really nice right now. I just got $1,000 added in there. What if I just did a trip to Bali for spring break? I don't want to go to Miami. I don't want to go to Cancun. Not saying it's a bad thing if you did decide to go there. I want to go somewhere different that's tropical and fun, that's still spring breakish, that I know it's going to be reasonably priced, and that I know that's going to be fun. And I said, what's trending? Bali. So I bought my ticket literally a week later on the payment method, kind of like Afterpay method that Qatar Airlines had, where you do a deposit and then it asks you to pay the rest of it at a later time. Keep in mind, it's not like a week later, it's like a couple of days later. And so I did that because I wanted to make sure my other paycheck went through, because you know, your girl was broke. So yeah, I did an impulsive buy, but I didn't do it immediately when I made this decision in my head. I said, let me get the cheapest flight if I'm really going to do this. It's no going back now. Let's do it. Independent solo trip. Bad all by myself. Let's go. So I got on my laptop, asked my mom, what are some good sites for flights? I said, I saw Expedia, Priceline. I went through every airplane, cheap this, cheap that site I could find. I even went through the ones that compiled all the airplane lists for you so you can see the cheapest flight. And I looked at the actual cities that flew out of cities that surround my area, and I looked at those and said, asked myself if they were cheaper than the ones that I had, being from Washington DC, and I did find one, and it was in New York. So after I flew out of New York, after I chose to fly out of New York, I said, oh, this flight was only $8.94. Let me rewind. After I figured out that I wanted to fly out of New York because it was $8.94 versus $1,012, I said that's no problem. New York and DC are fairly close to each other when it comes to time compared to a 22-hour flight. And I can just take a bus to New York. And I chose to do that because I saved $100. And I think the other flights were like $2,000, $1,500. And the 1,000 one that had some change on it was near being sold out. So after I looked at all the airlines with the different flights on it, I chose to choose Qatar Airlines, which had the cheaper flight of $8.94. Which is very good round trip from JFK Kennedy Airport, New York, to 𝓁𝒃𝓃𝓄𝒃. I'm saying this so wrong. Bali International Airport and back. And then that's not including the cost that I did for taking a bus from New York to Washington DC, and that was $20. So yeah. So now I am on to my tip when it comes to safety. Safety, safety, safety. It is very important. My mom reminded me to be in contact with the U.S. Embassy while I was away, because they can really help you when you get yourself into some very unfavorable circumstances, whether it be, you know, clubbing a little too hard, getting arrested, hope that never happens to you, or being jailed, imprisoned, being caught with drugs. You want to make sure that you look at the country you're going to rules versus the country that you've come from, their rules that are enacted, because you don't want to get caught up in another country for something that was legal in your country simply because you were ignorant to it and you did not have that information, when you can easily just jump on Google, type it in, look at what they have going on, and just seeing what you can and cannot do while you're away. So that is very, very important. Also, having a point of contact is very important. I use my mom as my point of contact. I turned my location on my iPhone, and then I also downloaded WhatsApp so we can always stay in contact with each other, because it works off of Wi-Fi and not your actual cellular connection. And I also told a couple more of my family members where I was going. I sent them my plane itinerary as well, so they know what time I should arrive in what country, and I included what time I would be traveling, because there is like time differences, because you go into different time zones and you kind of go silent when you get on a very long flight, whether it be like 10 hours, 17 hours, 21 hours. So you want to make sure that you're keeping in contact with your family before you do something as extreme as that. Also, tag your luggage, tag your luggage, tag your luggage. I'm talking about all the way back to kindergarten. Have a tag in your purse, just saying like a couple facts about you in case you have any sort of like mental disorder, or you have an allergic reaction, or you're young like me and you want somebody to know who you are in case anything happens to you. Say you're like unconscious and someone wants to like call someone for you or ask what they want to do, and you have nothing on you and they can't open your phone. You don't want that to happen. So if you just have like a little, kind of like what you had in kindergarten, just like a little tag that says your name, your number, contact this person if this happens, where you're staying if you choose to do so, or just like the street, just so you can have some sort of like safety net for yourself if you're unable to defend yourself and save yourself and you need someone else, whether it be a stranger or someone else to help you and assist you if you're going through a traumatic time. Also, my last point when it comes to safety, don't make yourself seen. Don't make yourself seen. Don't make yourself seen. And what I mean by this is, do not wear any paraphernalia that straight up says, I'm from A country. You know, I'm from B country. You know, don't do that. And I'll tell you why. Do not do that. A, because you're going to have more eyes on you when it comes to tourist traps, sex trafficking, kidnappers, people who want to harm you. Yeah, just don't make yourself seen. Don't bring any country paraphernalia. Like, I love New York. Do not bring that with you. I know it's cute, but just if you leave it in your bag, trust me, you don't want to risk your safety, your life, or endanger yourself simply because you have on your I love whatever shirt or country's paraphernalia, or I'm proud to be this and that. It just draws more attention to you, and when you're in another country, it's best if you not draw as much attention to yourself because you're in a foreign country. Like, quite literally, you're a foreigner in a foreign country. So it's good just for your safety not to make any attention to yourself, because you're already making attention to yourself by being a foreigner. You already look different, talk different, sound different. You don't need to bring any more attention to yourself. Trust me. That comes to my connections. So connections. While I was a solo traveler, I got not bored or sad, but I was like, you know, it'd be cool if I had some friends, but if I don't, you know, it's cool, like some friends to meet abroad. And those naturally happen, but in case I wanted to like eat lunch or have dinner with somebody, I was like, oh, that would be cool, or I have somebody to tell me what's going on or what's new in the area who spoke English or was from the same country as me. So some apps that I used were Travel North, Travello, Solo Traveler, Eat With, Torlina, Hostel World, and a couple others. I'm not sponsored. I'm just saying these are a couple ones that I dibbled and dabbled in, just in case you get lonely or feel lonely. It's always good to have someone who's like maybe on the same journey as you, maybe a solo traveler like you, or you just want to have somebody to, you know, chat with, have a drink, have a dinner with. It's just good to have somebody. But still, be safe. That comes to tourist traps. Let's talk about them. So tourist traps: haggling, overpriced items, bad exchange rates, and transport, also in packages. So when you go to the other country, we're going to talk about hassling first. You will be hassled. I'm not saying all the time, but in many of my experiences, I've been hassled. Particularly in Bali, I was very hassled. I felt the most hassled when I got off of the plane and came out the airport. And I was being hassled over finding a taxi driver. Now, me being 19, I am very tech savvy. I know how to get places fast. I've done the research, so I know what's a good price and what's not a good price. Do not let yourself be hassled, and you have to be very strong, independent, and firm. This is not the time to just, because if you're not firm, strong, and just very demanding when it comes to defending yourself and making sure that you're not being like crowded upon or like followed, you need to be very aggressive. I'm not saying just be like, F off. Like, no. I'm just saying be wary that it's people who want your money and they want you to drive with them and they want to get your money and they want you to choose their in particular taxi. So once I got off the airplane and I walked through the airport, I walked out of the terminal immediately. Oh, taxi, ma'am. Oh, taxi this. Oh, taxi that. Taxi. I was like, no. I mean, they're shouting out prices at you. It's quite uncomfortable if you're like an introvert, because it's just like people are always yelling at you. They're yelling over other people to get your attention. So do not let yourself be hassled. You can either A, ignore them, keep walking straight. If they come close to you, just say, no, I'm not interested. Keep walking. Don't negotiate until you get outside of the terminal. And the reason I say that is because usually everybody's in the competition for money. They want your money. So if it's not one guy who's going to take the price that you said that you want, it's another guy who'll take it happily, you know? So I remember my first experience when I got off, I said 2,000 Indonesian rupiah to go somewhere. And he was like, oh, no. You're going to keep walking and you're going to ask somebody else. And so you're going to be like, 2,000 Indonesian rupiah. You'll take me to wherever I need to go, right? And make sure you look at the distance, because I will say it is quite disrespectful if you don't look at the actual distance you're going. I guess convert it into a cheap price and be like, oh, this sounds good. Make sure it's a reasonable price. Don't just haggle them, because sometimes that is a good price and they are losing money by taking you there when you incorporate gas and the amount of miles that are traveled. So I knew on my app Gojek, my head I was like, that's like the least amount of money. I'm going to try to find somebody who's going to pay the same price as Gojek. And the only reason I couldn't use Gojek is because I had issues with the app. And I think it was because I was not registered with them, and I was an American, and I had an American account registered in an Indonesian company. That's the only reason I didn't use Gojek. When I met the man, I said, you know, I'm going to pay this price, paying any more, unless you want to offer me something less, but I'm not paying any more. And he was like, 250, and I was like, no. He was like, 220, no. 210, no. 205, no. And he's like, okay, I'll take you for 2,000. Because a lot of times, you know, they'll overcharge you just because they think that you have it or they know that you have it, you know. So that ties into my other thing about don't make yourself seen. Dress plainly. Don't be like flaunting, like luxury, Gucci this, Gucci that, you know. Gucci everything. So yeah, like I said, you want to download, in Bali in particular, you want to download Gojek and Grab, which are two traveling services, which are the equivalent to Uber, as I said before. They allow you to get food delivered. They allow you to be transported by motorbike or car through the app. And I think they do a couple other things, but that's only for Gojek. Grab is just Uber. And then Gojek is like Uber Eats and Uber in one app. And it does a couple other things. Like I think you can have groceries and like medicine delivered too. But, you know, just do your research and look into that. So my last tip, you are a foreigner. remember that, you know? So what I mean by that is you want to be mindful of cultural customs. You want to make sure that you're showing respect. Also, attempting to use the language, I feel like, is very respectful. And you want to be wary of stereotypes. So in Bali, they have these things called 𝓁𝒾𝓀𝓒𝓃. Sorry if I messed that up. Which are basket offerings that are placed in the morning that are offered to many of the gods. I put these baskets on the ground in front of the walkway and in front of the homes, but you want to make sure that you walk around them. Do not step on them. They also have the cultural tradition of having the first customer in the morning to receive a discount. So I encountered this when I was at 𝓁𝒾𝓀𝓃𝓾, and I saw this Balinese head that I really liked, and I was like, oh, like, this is really nice. And she was like, oh yeah, I made that by hand. I was like, oh, how much is it? She was like, 3,000 Indonesian rupiah. And I was like, oh, I don't have that much on me right now, which is true. I don't have that much. And she was like, but because you're my first customer, and I didn't ask her for a cheaper price, but she said, because you're my first customer, I'll give it to you for 1,000. I keep saying 1,000. 150,000 rupiah. I was like, oh, that's really generous of you. I'll buy it, because I did have that much money on me at the time. And she said, okay, great. Packed it up. I gave her the money, and she waved it around her store. So the sign of the first customer means that they're going to have a very prosperous, productive, plentiful day. And you want to make sure that if you're the first customer, don't hassle them more for a lower price, and look at the actual item that you're buying and make sure that you're paying the amount that you're paying is worth the item that you're buying, and it's not something that's very touristy or something that has been manufactured a lot of times, like in the factories or something of that sort. So first of all, don't hassle them if you're the first customer. Take whatever price that they offer, because it's very sacred to them, and it's kind of rude to hassle them more after they already gave you a discount. And then also, if you're not the first customer, make sure that you don't hassle them over something that they've actually created by hand. Just because you want to respect their work and their art and the time that they put in to make that for you and sell it, because it is one of it's like their craft, you know. You wouldn't want somebody trying to discredit and undervalue your craft. Just don't do that. And then also try to use the language. I used a couple words just to say thank you, hello, goodbye, stuff like that. And then also cultural customs. That's that. It doesn't have to be a big gesture. Just be mindful of the customs and the things that you encounter and see while you're there. So yeah, those are my 6 tips. If you have any questions about any one of my tips that I said, or things that I should have talked about that I missed, just let me know in the comments. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next video. Bye.